All right, ready?
Sure.
All right, hey everybody, this is James Connors. I'm here with,
Andrew Brase.
and the name of our show is,
Brase Makes with James Connors.
and so a little bit about ourselves. I'm James Connors. I run I Draw on Receipts on Instagram. I'm also co-host of the Minor Details podcast. I'm a freelance industrial designer living in Brooklyn, New York, doing all sorts of things. And
I'm Andrew Brase. I have a background in industrial design. I currently teach model making and prototyping at FIT for the toy design department. And I'm also a freelance industrial designer.
nice.
So
Yeah. And so for this first one, I've always really been interested in toy design and never really attempted one. And I just thought the helicopter was such a dynamic thing with the top propeller and the back propeller and the carriage for the person, and just like the visual of a helicopter is just, it's kind of like burned into our minds. And I was very interested in just, could I design a toy helicopter? And once I did one, I just found that I couldn't stop doing it because there were so many possibilities. And I've more recently been trying to reframe model making in my mind as a part of the sketching process. And so I think that's what appealed to me so much about doing this exercise first, because I feel like it is sort of a conversation that you can have between sketching and model making, to start to inform decisions both ways from the 2D to the 3D.
what we're going to do in this case is just to get a sense of scale and actually make it, three-dimensional and stand up, we will basically mount this to something solid, like say cardboard. And do some really simple joinery where we have the sort of the two pieces slot together.
Right.
And then we can actually have this physically kind of give you a better sense of the volume. So typically what I would do, and if you had a proper spray booth or the sidewalk, we would use something called Super 77, which is, if anyone's ever used rubber cement, it's basically rubber cement in spray form. But since we're sitting at a kitchen table, I think we can get away with glue sticks.
Yes. Now this is my speed.
Good.
I feel like this is where my model making started and ended.
So right now, because
no, I
I
just
can't
went to
see.
town.
No, go to town. Go to town. You do you. What I would say is actually, I can't really see what I'm doing here, so I'll actually cut a little closer to the lines.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So I know I'm hitting the spots.
So
that I want
right
to.
from the start, I have jumped the gun. I also have a blue glue stick, so it is showing me exactly
little
where
easier.
I'm hitting it.
Actually, I'm going to cut off. I'm not going to cut quite to the line in this case. I'm just going to keep hacking at this thing. And actually, this could be enough for you in terms of just to get a sense of scale. I'm cutting about, and giving myself about 1/8 of an inch outside of my outline. And really just to kind of work through the material and not get too precious about stuff. But if you're just trying to get a really rough sense of scale, like this could be all you need, and we get it done in like 5 minutes. On this front view, the main canopy is this dome shape, which is a curve, and so are these. What would you call these? The things that go around the blades.
Yeah, they're the propeller containing feet.
Okay, so the propeller containing feet are also rounded.
Or the PCF, I don't know.
Yeah, these are the PCFs. The PCFs are rounded. So one thing is, if we're just trimming paper, it's very thin material, we can usually cut a nice smooth curve. Now that we have this added level of cardboard, and it's also corrugated, so there are these ribs that are kind of running through it, so it's not a consistent thickness. If we try to cut that curve in one go, we're just going to mess everything up. It's going to be a messy cut. We're probably going to tear it more than cut it. And so what you can do is, as you're working around these curves, you basically want to make a series of small flat cuts. And another thing, you have there's a line weight here, right? Your line isn't just this like infinitely tiny line. It's there's a little bit of fatness to it, and so you can kind of hide those flats within that curve, and then it gives you the illusion of this being a round surface.
Right.
So where the PCF meets the dome, there's this. Now we have this opposite problem where it's like an internal angle here. You could cut into it, but what I like to do in situations like this is start at this point and cut out. And that lets us, that keeps us from cutting too far into our form. And it's also just easier in this case that there's like kind of a runway that you just kind of straight shot.
Right.
So I'll do that.
I had somebody tell me once to like kiss the cardboard, essentially. Just continue to go at it, because otherwise you might get indentations around the edges that you wouldn't necessarily want, because you want to try and keep those edges crisp if you can. And I also see that you have, normally, I guess, like, I'm trying to think of how I usually hold this, and I feel like I usually hold it like this, but you're holding it similarly to the way you hold an X-Acto, and I feel like, is that a precision thing for you, or a control thing?
Depends on what you want to do. If I'm just cutting, like, for example, when we broke down these boxes to just get rough shapes, I had a grip on it that was stable and was, cutting it.
Right.
If I'm trying to treat this like a precise tool, whether or not it is, you can kind of actually, I think this is how you use a knife as well. If you're like cutting veggies.
Right.
You kind of have your finger on the top, and that kind of helps guide, kind of becomes an extension.
Yeah.
What we'll do to give this a sense of, our sense of volume, we'll basically cut a slit upwards and a slit facing down, and they'll kind of slot together.
Right.
You have to think about where you actually want these parts to intersect. Right? So if you just glue this to here, this tells you information from the front, but then on the side it doesn't make any sense, because now this is like way out in front. And so in this case, we've got this dome that we know is supposed to be this hemisphere.
Yeah.
And so we want to find the center of that and use that as our point that we're slotting.
Right. I have to ask you a question,
Yes.
Andrew, because I'm at this part where I'm not sure the best way to go about cutting this, which is this sort of internal edge here. Now, how did you go about cutting that?
So you kind of cut some slits to break it up into smaller parts, and then you're cutting a smaller surface.
Right.
And then as you're removing these parts, these like pieces of pie, then it gives you more room to move on to the next section.
Cool.
Taking a look at this piece, you do have this guiding line that splits us up in the center. What we want to do is we want to make a slot that is the width of the cardboard that we're using, so that there's room to, if you just cut a straight slit, you're going to be kind of shoving it together and it'll get distorted. And I also want this slot to terminate or end about in the center, because I'm going to make two slots. I'm going to make a slot here and a slot in the other piece that match, and they need to be at the right depth, or otherwise, if this would, slot halfway and then it's not fully footed the way we want.
All right, so I have finished cutting out. They're not quite as pretty as Andrew's, but there they are. They're cut to the perimeters.
So let's do this, and we'll have two different approaches to this. So I've cut the slot for both. Well, one of them.
Yeah.
So now we've got, and it might be easier to see from the back.
Right.
The slot, and then I'm doing the same with this. I've already measured out my slot. This time it's facing down. So we'll cut that. And they both intersect right along the center of the height of your part. So I have my two slots.
Oh, awesome.
And this might be easier to see from behind, that I have a slot pointing up and a slot pointing down, so that they intersect like this. And hopefully I did this right. And then they...
Nice. That's pretty great, because if I'm looking at the time, that took less than an hour. And so you could imagine, if the purpose of your day was to figure out the right scale for your object, you could crank, 3, 4, 5 of those out, depending on what range you were looking for. in like probably just in the morning. It's pretty impactful. It's pretty amazing. Like it's a quick and impactful thing. You can sort of hold it in the palm of your hand and get a feel for, just how big that actually is. And I feel pretty good about that size.
So your initial hunch feels right.
Yeah, I think I was pretty genius with how how I sized that. But yeah, and so now I have these guys. Should we hot glue these up?
I got the. You wanna?
So now I've got my guys glued up. So yeah, I mean definitely you still get a sense of scale. It's not quite as satisfying as the full the sort of 3D, the 2D 3D that we have going here, but
I mean, if your purpose is to just get a sense of scale and you just do, maybe all you need is the side view. Something like this is, even simpler than this. And it just the nature of having this little kickstand on the back to pop it up.
Yeah.
Makes it a little more real.
Yeah. So if you follow us along in this series, I think you'll see, this is the foundation and it's just the detail is going to increase throughout the series. And yeah, I'm really excited to see where this all leads, because I've been wanting to see this helicopter in its final physical form for quite a long time, and so yeah, I'm excited. So anyway, tune in next week.
Yeah, however we choose to release this.
Yeah, so see you next time.